today's Top Boxing News.
Okay, and now it's time for our weekend recap, recapping all this weekend's action all around the world. In Costa Rica, former champion Yokasta Valle returned to action to rebound off her close points decision loss to Senicia Estrada. Opposite the ring, away fighter Ramandeep Kaur, who was in deep with Yokasta Valle. In truth, the ring walk lasted longer than the fight.
Fight only lasted 2 rounds.
This was Yokasta Valle's first fight with her new corner, her new trainer, Panda Nahar. The fight didn't last long enough to leave us with very much to reflect upon because, like I said, it only lasted 2 rounds. But in the 2 rounds it lasted, it did seem like Yokasta's throwing and landing with more authority than she usually does. That oftentimes when she gets off a combination, she slaps with her punches mid-range to inside and sometimes loses form, whereas this time the punches were straighter, coming in hotter and harder.
Ramandeep Kaur looked like a deer in the headlights. This was a considerable step up in class for her. She had never fought anybody remotely close to a Yokasta Valle, so you can imagine that as Yokasta starts stepping into her jab and bringing other punches over, Ramandeep just wasn't used to it. That much coming at her, that often.
Somebody who can push back. Essentially, what Ramandeep wasn't used to was somebody who can push back, somebody who can fight back.
That often happens when a fighter steps up in class too fast. They're used to being the one doing all the pushing until they're in there with a world-class fighter.
And they find out that there's levels to the game. It's not just something that people say. It's not just a cliche. There's truth to it.
There's levels.
After just 1 round with Yokasta Valle, Ramandeep was breathing with her mouth open
At the start of the 2nd round.
slow to come out of her corner in the 2nd round, where the contest ended, where it was waved off by the referee. Mentally, she checked out. As Yokasta Valle started stepping into her jab again and bringing other punches over, there was very little that Ramandeep could do about it. She knew she couldn't trade with her mid-range to inside, so all she could do was tuck herself behind that guard and hope for the best. Try to stop some of those punches from getting in there, but there was no response.
Ramandeep wasn't fighting back.
As Yokasta inched forward, backing Ramandeep into the corner, unloading a salvo of punches that Ramandeep could do absolutely nothing to stop. It was a mercy stoppage from the ref.
Waved off in the 2nd round.
After the fight, Yokasta made some mention of running it back with Senicia Estrada, this division's undisputed champion. And that's not the first time I've seen Yokasta say that, but I've seen no confirmation from the Estrada side or the top-ranked side about there being a second fight, a rematch between them.
So I don't know if that's just Yokasta saying that or if that's something they're actually working on.
Here stateside in Tampa, on the undercard of Jake Paul versus Mike Perry, we saw Amendia Serrano return to the 140-pound division opposite the ring, Stevie Morgan.
For what was a stay busy fight, en route to the Katie Taylor Showdown, the Katie Taylor rematch, later on this year. And the aesthetic of this fight was very similar to the aesthetic of the fight we just talked about with Yokasta Valle and Ramandeep Kaur.
It was the same thing.
And it only lasted 2 rounds.
At the start of the 1st round, it didn't take Amanda very long to start coming forward and putting punches together and getting settled in the way she normally does, whereas for Stevie Morgan, it just looked like the moment was too big for her.
Yeah, she talked a good one in the build-up, describing Amanda as low-hanging fruit. I heard her say that Amanda's low-hanging fruit and that she was the weakest of the current reigning champions in the sport. Well, that's not how the fight played out, and that's not what Stevie showed yesterday. She was out of her depth, out of sorts.
There was absolutely nothing she could do to keep Amanda out or keep Amanda off of her once Amanda got started.
She was teeing off.
Even though Stevie Morgan was the naturally bigger woman, the naturally bigger fighter, and you could see it. She was taller, she was longer, bigger build, but not a bigger punch, and not physically stronger.
It didn't take Amanda long to get her out of there.
It was a referee stoppage in the 2nd round, just like what we saw in the Yokasta Valle fight, for the same reason. This fight is getting hit too much, and there doesn't seem to be anything they can do about it. So it was a strong showing for Amanda Serrano in what was her return to 140 pounds, though naturally, like with any boxing match, you're always going to get a couple of crab apples, a couple of boo birds.
What now?
Saw people complaining in the comment section of my comments during the fight saying that The opponent was terrible. Could they not have found somebody better? That Stevie Morgan was a punching bag.
These people deliberately remove all the context from a situation so that they can complain.
That's literally what they're doing, because the whole point of this fight was allowing Amanda to reacquaint herself with 140 pounds, reacquaint herself with this division, because she's only ever fought at 140 once, and that was many years ago in 2018.
So what do you want? You want she should have fought some killer at 140 pounds to jeopardize the Taylor rematch?
And jeopardize a multi-million-dollar payday. What kind of rationale do you people have? The focus is the Katie Taylor fight. Yesterday's fight was just a stay busy fight.
That's all it was.
What the hell are you belly aching about? You want her to fight a live animal? She's gonna fight a live animal. She's fighting Katie at 140 for undisputed.
Some people just like to complain. Like I said, they just like to complain. They remove all the context from a situation so they can complain.
Because you don't know that she's fighting Katie Taylor later on this year.
Get a clue.
So what was encouraging about yesterday's fight is that it was Amanda's first fight at 140 pounds in a very long time, and her power is still there. It seems to have carried. That if you can't get out of the way of Amanda's punches, you're gonna get hurt at 126 or at 140.
You better move.
And that was the takeaway. Now, as it pertains to the main event of that same card, the Jake Paul versus Mike Perry fight, Mike Perry boxing match, Mike Perry, who crossed over from bare-knuckle boxing into boxing, I was thoroughly entertained. Being honest with you, the card, from top to bottom, was well orchestrated. The fighters were well matched for what made for an entertaining night of boxing. Emphasis on entertaining and entertainment.
Too often when Jake Paul has a fight, people treat it like it's supposed to be something else. Something other than a social media influencer crossing over into the world of boxing when he himself doesn't even have that many fights. This guy's got a grand total of 10 fights. Just 10. You understand that your average professional boxer doesn't start fighting world-class fighters only 10 fights into their pro boxing career. No, a trajectory like that really is reserved for blue-chip prospects, standout amateurs, and Olympians. Most boxers, your average boxer, does not face world-class fighters just 10 fights into their pro career. It doesn't work like that. So why are people expecting it to work like that for Jake? Because they don't like him.
And why don't they like him?
Because he's making a lot of money. Over 14,000 people paid to be there yesterday. They sold out the place. Over 14,000 people paid to see this show.
And the old adage goes, success breeds envy. There are many fighters out there, many boxers, who look at the size of Jake Paul's audience and the pay scale of his fights, and there's a resentment there that there are many pro boxers that they consider more legitimate than Jake that aren't making that money. But those boxers don't have Jake's audience. What do you want me to say? That's an audience that crossed over with him into the world of boxing. He had an audience built in because of his social media following, and that's who consumes his content. So if he's making more money than your average Joe,
Your average Joe isn't a social media influencer.
he's not taking no food off of your plate or no money out of your pocket. I saw standout amateur Steffi Seinman say, anyone who watches Fighting for Real knows that the Jake Paul versus Mike Perry fight was staged. The fake wobbly legs, the lack of offense and defense, the weird banter before the fight, everything was off and smelled funny. I have zero respect for that guy. You must really be an insecure piece of shite to fake a fight like this. You'll never be a real fighter. You use the biggest female boxer in the world to legitimize your bullshit cards, then pretend like you care about women's boxing.
You see, I don't agree with any of that. I don't. Jake Paul doesn't have to afford opportunities to a Jade Jagreen. He didn't have to pair up with Amanda Serrano. He chose to. And if he's still boxing, it's because he has an affinity for the sport.
Do you think he has to make his money this way? Because I can tell you that he doesn't.
He was already making money before he started boxing. He could have kept making money doing what he was doing. If he's doing boxing, it's because he likes boxing. He has an affinity for it.
There are more comfortable ways to make money than how he's making money from the sport of boxing. You know that he could just be a kick streamer.
A content creator.
I don't agree with these criticisms criticisms levied against Jake Paul. I just don't. What I see is a lot of resentment and borderline jealousy that Jake Paul in 10 fights has amassed an audience bigger than your average boxer will throughout their pro career. But maybe that's because he was a social media influencer first.
You gonna get mad at him for that?
Him and his brother Logan, they started out on Vine. Do you remember Vine?
Do it for the Vine.
Whether these professional boxers and amateurs agree with it or not, Jake Paul is exposing a completely separate audience to your average audience for a boxing match, your average boxing fan. He's exposing a lot of people to boxing that perhaps would not otherwise be exposed to it. A younger generation that many of today's fighters don't know how to appeal to. As it pertains to the contribution he's made to women's boxing, what major promoter signed Jade Green?
What major promoter was going to? Most of the promotional outfits here in America still don't sign that many women boxers, if any at all.
Golden Boy only has 1 or 2 girls under contract. Top Rank only has 1 or 2 girls under contract, and the PBC don't have any at all.
Criticize them.
I bet you won't, because your real issue isn't what you're saying it is. You're just mad that this guy is making all this money from boxing like he's taking the food off of somebody else's plate when he isn't. I enjoyed the show from top to bottom. The whole thing was entertaining, and that's what boxing is supposed to be. It is supposed to be entertainment, without the holier-than-thou attitude for every boring fighter that's got a jab and a shoulder roll.
Spare me.
I had more fun watching that card yesterday than Shakur Stevenson's last 2 fights, and I'm not going to apologize for that, because I'm a customer.
And don't give me the sanctity of boxing routine when so many people in boxing are willing to forgive Ryan Garcia and make excuses for the Osterin they found in his system and the racist tirade that he went on.
Don't come to me with the sanctity of boxing crap.
It was entertaining. I take it for what it is, and it was entertaining.
2 very limited fighters, 2 very limited boxers, one in the early stages of his career and another, a bare-knuckle boxer looking to cross over into boxing. It was entertaining to watch. I don't pretend it's more than that.
Plus, I get a kick out of watching Jake Paul beat up bare-knuckle boxers and MMA fighters who think that boxing is so simple, it's so easy, anybody could do it, and seeing time and time again that they can't.
I get a kick out of watching Jake beat up MMA fighters, I do.
What are supposed to be the ultimate fighters, ultimate fighting. You're the ultimate, but you can't box?
I get a kick out of watching Jake outbox MMA fighters, I do.
Sue me.
I don't got this negative attitude or ill will towards what this kid is doing. There's no reason to. No, I don't think of him as being anywhere near the same ilk as an Usyk or an Anthony Joshua.
Of course not.
But this is entertainment. This is sports entertainment. That's what it is. That's how I take it as. And the show was all right.
I liked it.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, in the land of the rising sun, WBC bantamweight champion Junto Nakatani dispatched challenger Vincent Astrolabio in 1 round. Just 1 round off a well-placed body shot, right down the pipe, right down the middle.
He is fast emerging as the worthiest adversary for his countryman, Naoya Inoue.
Anywhere at or around these weights, Naoya Inoue seemingly reacting to the card and reacting to the knockout said, Japanese boxing is entering a golden age. What an amazing time.
They run the lower weights.
Fighters like Kenshiro Teraji and pretty much the entire bantamweight division, Japan runs 118 pounds. Junto Nakatani and Takuma Inoue, Naoya's brother among them.
Naoya up there at 122.
He's not lying when he says that Japan is entering a golden age not otherwise seen in previous eras of boxing. They're coming into their own. There is a vibrant and fervent fan base over there with a big appetite for boxing that primarily centers around the lower weights. So you'll understand me when I say that Naoya Inoue really shouldn't be in any hurry to leave 122 for 126, where there are 4 champions that really should be fighting each other instead of waiting for a smaller fighter to move up in weight to make them relevant. That you should achieve relevance by doing what he did, unifying your own division, so by the time he moves up there, you're the last man standing. What these guys seem to want to do is stay away from each other so they can wait for him. And I'm not a proponent of that.
That's what we saw at 168 for years.
Through something like 2 or 3 separate cycles of champions in the super middleweight division, those guys were not interested in taking out the competition and unifying. That didn't all of a sudden become important to them until Canelo got there and did all the heavy lifting. did all the legwork.
So that those guys could then swoop in afterwards with all of their financial demands and their expectations, their entitlements. That's what's going on right now. At 126, there are 4 of you guys.
2 of you are with the same promoter. When are you going to unify? Or are you going to sit on your hands, wait, play it safe, and fight in filler fights until Inui decides to move up? Well, I have some bad news for you.
What?
He has since taken his foot off the gas. He says he's not moving up until his body is good and ready, and that don't seem to be no time soon, so you guys better do something.
Might end up fighting Sam Goodman, MJ Akhmadaliev down the line, but he's not in a hurry to move up. Nor should he be.
After already becoming a 4-division, 2-time undisputed champion, why would he be? Especially when there's a bigger fight. There's a bigger fight lying in wait that's being built that would be bigger than any fight he could have at 126. And that's the Junto Nakatani fight. Junto is at 118. Inui is at 122. Because Junto's fight this weekend ended so abruptly, it's conceivable that they're gonna get him back out there at least one more time before this year is out. And the next fight could be a unification.
There are 3 other champions at his weight to choose from.
That Junto may end up doing in his next fight what the guys at 126 should be doing in theirs. They should be looking for unification matches, not for a smaller fighter to move up in weight so they can get paid.
It's pathetic.
The Japanese boxers don't need you. They don't need you to make money. You need them.
Because you're not doing over here what they're doing over there.
And that's the bottom line. Naoya Inoue versus Junto Nakatani has the potential to be the biggest fight the Japanese boxing scene has ever seen, ever produced. Junto Nakatani himself is a fan-friendly fighter with a fan-friendly style and a devastating punch. Generous physical dimensions for 118 and even 122. This guy's a tall drink of boxing.
My honest opinion is, I am more intrigued by Inui versus Nakatani than any of those fights at 126.
The spectacle of it, and how big it could be in the Japanese boxing scene, monumental, more so than anything at 126. If you guys want to do something, you should make your own history, unify your own division, so that the winner of that fight, whoever it is, will have no one left to fight but you.
That's what you guys should do.
And that's what resonated with me the most after this weekend's fight, this weekend's first round knockout.
Junto is devastating.
And a fight between him and Inui makes more dollars and it makes more sense than Inui rushing up to 126 for a bunch of deadbeats.